When a person betrays you, there is a sharp stirring in the heart, a sudden collapse of what once felt like trust. The instinct, almost primal in its urgency, is to strike back, to repay the wound with a wound, to let them feel the heat of the same fire that seared you. Yet if one looks more deeply, one begins to see that retaliation is not an act of liberation, but of further entanglement. It is as though betrayal is a hook, and the desire for revenge is the tug that ensures the hook remains lodged within you. In this way, revenge does not free you. It secures your captivity within the very pain you wish to escape. This is because every act of vengeance ties your identity to the one who hurt you. When you strike back, you are no longer living from your own freedom, but from the shadow they cast. You become defined, even if unconsciously, by their actions. And in that definition, you surrender your autonomy. It is a strange irony, is it not, that in trying to prove your strength through retaliation, you are actually letting them dictate the script of your behavior. They have chosen betrayal. You, in mirroring them, choose to live as their echo. If you pause for a moment and reflect, you will see how revenge operates like fire feeding upon itself. One blow begets another. One harsh word demands a sharper reply. One wound is followed by a deeper wound. The cycle feeds itself endlessly, because neither side wishes to appear weak, and each believes strength is shown in the force of the return. Yet what is strength? Is it in the volume of your anger? In the cleverness of your retaliation? Or is it in the stillness that refuses to play the game at all? Strength that is bound up in revenge is brittle, always needing the fuel of an opponent to feel alive. Strength that rests in non-retaliation is quiet, steady, and unshakable, because it is not dependent on the enemy at all. Think of the ocean. When a stone is thrown into it, the surface ripples, but the depths remain undisturbed. If the sea were to rise in anger at every stone, it would never know peace, never retain its vastness. But by allowing the stone to sink, the ocean reveals its true power, its capacity to absorb without being defined by what falls into it. Retaliation is the storm on the surface, brief and consuming, but non-retaliation is the ocean's depth, infinite and calm. What lies beneath the urge for retaliation is the belief that justice requires your hand to even the scales. Yet justice, in its truest form, is not an arithmetic of harm. When you repay betrayal with betrayal, you are not balancing the scale, you are multiplying its weight. The one who betrayed you has already diminished themselves by their act. Your retaliation does not restore your dignity. It erodes it, placing you on the same ground where they stumbled. True justice is revealed when you show that you cannot be reduced to their level. It is not in becoming what hurt you, but in refusing to let it alter your essence. There is also a subtle intoxication in retaliation, because it allows the ego to feel victorious. For a brief moment, you may think, I have shown them, I have restored my pride. But such victory is hollow, a shadow without substance, because beneath it, you are still haunted by the betrayal, still chained to the one who wronged you. Real victory lies in the freedom to move on untouched, in the refusal to let another person's failure define the quality of your heart. To respond without retaliation is not to deny the hurt, but to acknowledge it without becoming possessed by it. Consider also the way revenge distorts time. A betrayal occurs in a single moment, yet the thirst for retaliation drags it endlessly into the present. Each day, you nurse the thought of getting back. You relive the wound. You replay the scene, reimagine the hurt, and rehearse the act of vengeance. In this way, the betrayal continues to live, not because of the betrayer, but because you keep breathing life into it. By choosing not to retaliate, you allow time to heal. You let the wound close instead of scratching it open each morning with thoughts of retribution. And so, the great trap of retaliation is that it promises freedom while ensuring bondage. It whispers that you will feel better once you return the hurt. Yet all it truly gives you is a heavier heart. The betrayer has already shown you who they are. You do not need to prove it back to them. By refusing retaliation, you do not excuse their action, but you reclaim your own freedom from the chain of reaction. You demonstrate that your life is not a mere reflection of others, but a flame that burns by its own fuel. If one looks carefully, one sees that revenge is nothing more than imitation. To retaliate is to borrow the same language of cruelty that was spoken to you. But to refuse retaliation is to invent a new language, one that is not confined by the vocabulary of betrayal. It is to say, I am not your echo. I am my own voice. This is the true triumph, not to conquer another by their rules, but to walk away from the game entirely. In the end, the choice is always before you. Betrayal may ignite the spark of anger, but it is you who decides whether the spark becomes a consuming fire or whether it is allowed to fade into the vastness of your being. Retaliation narrows your world until it consists only of you and the betrayer, locked in endless combat. Non-retaliation expands your world, reminding you that life is greater than this single wound, that there are skies beyond the storm, and paths unbroken by the footprints of those who wronged you. When someone betrays you, there is a silence that comes afterward, not the silence of peace, but of questions echoing in the mind. In that silence, the sharpest danger is not only the wound they gave you, but the wound you begin to carve upon yourself. Betrayal cuts once from the outside, but self-blame cuts 1,000 times from within. You may find yourself lying awake asking, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Did I invite this? Such questions are the seeds of an invisible prison, where the bars are made not of steel but of your own doubts and insecurities. It is important to see that self-blame is a subtle trick of the mind, an attempt to make sense of what feels senseless. When trust is broken, the human mind longs for an explanation, and in the absence of clarity, it turns inward. It is easier, in some strange way, to believe I was at fault than to face the abyss of uncertainty. To blame oneself gives the illusion of control. If you caused it, then perhaps you could have prevented it, and perhaps you can prevent it in the future. Yet this illusion is costly, because it places the weight of another's weakness upon your own shoulders. The truth is that betrayal is often less about you and more about the inner conflict of the one who betrayed. A person who betrays acts out of fear, confusion, or their own hidden desires. They project their struggle onto you, not because you caused it, but because you happen to be standing in the path of their storm. When you carry their act as your burden, you are carrying not just your pain, but their dysfunction, their fragility, their shadows. And in doing so, you live as though you are the one who failed, while in reality, you are only the witness to their failure. Consider how heavy this burden becomes. Each thought of self-blame is like a stone placed in a sack you carry on your back. At first, it is only one stone, the question, why me? Then it multiplies into, what did I lack? What flaw in me invited this? Soon the sack is filled with stones so heavy that you can hardly walk upright. Yet none of these stones belong to you. They are the stones of another's broken promise, another's faltering courage, another's misplaced desire. And yet you bend under them, mistaking them for your own. The practice of freedom, then, is to recognize what belongs to you and what does not. Your feelings belong to you. The sadness, the shock, the disappointment. These are natural responses to betrayal. But the act itself, the choice to betray, belongs to the betrayer. It was born from their heart, not yours. To take it upon yourself is like carrying firewood for a fire you did not light. You are not responsible for another person's inability to remain true. And yet, if you let self-blame seep in, you may spend your life apologizing for wounds you did not cause. There is also the danger that self-blame becomes a mask for self-punishment. When you say, "It must have been me," you may begin to treat yourself harshly, to see yourself as unworthy of trust, love, or dignity. The betrayal becomes not just an event, but a mirror in which you see only your flaws magnified. This is the deepest cruelty of self-blame. It convinces you to betray yourself long after the other has gone. You begin to deny your own worth, to doubt your own intuition, to silence your own voice. The external betrayal becomes an internal one. And this second betrayal is the one that lingers longest. Imagine instead looking at betrayal as a reflection of the betrayer's state, not of your inadequacy. If a window shatters in a storm, do you blame the tree that stood outside? No. You understand the storm was larger than the tree. In the same way, when someone betrays, it reveals the storm within them, not the defect within you. Their inability to remain steady says nothing of your value, just as the collapse of a bridge in an earthquake says nothing about the worth of the traveler who trusted it. Self-blame thrives in isolation, in the secret conversations you have with yourself when no one else is listening. But if you were to step outside of your thoughts, you might see how distorted they become when left alone. Speak the same doubts aloud to a trusted friend, and they would likely remind you that no human being can control another's choice to betray. They would tell you that betrayal is a fracture in the betrayer's character, not a reflection of your worth. Sometimes it is in hearing another voice that you realize how harsh your own has become. Yet beyond the comfort of others lies the deeper practice of self-compassion. To turn self-blame into self. Compassion is to recognize your pain without condemning yourself for it. It is to say, "I was hurt, but I am still whole. I was deceived, but I am not defined by deception. I was betrayed." Self-compassion allows the wound to breathe without infecting it with poison. It is not denial of the pain, but the refusal to magnify it by turning it against yourself. What happens if you drop the burden of self-blame? You discover a lighter way of walking through the world. The betrayal remains a chapter in your story, but not the summary of your life. You stop rewriting the past with questions of guilt, and instead allow the present to unfold with clarity. You begin to see that you can learn from betrayal without blaming yourself for it. You can become wiser, more discerning, more tender toward your own boundaries. Not because you were flawed, but because you are growing. Self-blame is a detour that keeps you circling around the wound. To step away from it is to move forward on the path, carrying not the weight of another's choice, but the strength of your own resilience. It is to reclaim your inner ground, to realize that while betrayal is a storm, you are the sky in which storms come and go. The sky does not apologize for the clouds that pass through it. It remains vast, unbroken, infinite.